Hello everyone, once again, this is David Stearns with Haley Marketing, and welcome to today's Lunch with Haley webinar. Today's topic is mobile recruiting, or as the subtitle says, getting more candidates from smartphone to placement. Now, in thinking about today's webinar, my first inclination was we've been hearing so much about mobile recruiting. We've been hearing about it for the last several years, and candidly, it's been a lot more hype than reality. But I think things have really changed. And if you look at some of the data, which we will look at today, the tides have truly turned in terms of the volume of people who are using their smartphones as part of the job searching process. It's really not hype anymore. In fact, I've seen lots of people who said 2013 was the year of mobile recruiting and 2014 was the year of mobile recruiting. But it looks like 2015 truly is the real beginning of the mass market adopting mobile recruiting. And when we say mobile recruiting, we're not just talking about building a responsive website for your staffing company. We're talking about how you truly think about using mobile throughout the entire recruiting process, how you think about how the candidates are using mobile and how you create better attraction, engagement, and ultimately job applications and placement through mobile. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, let's take a look at the agenda. For today's event, we are going to first look at just what is mobile recruiting. We're going to take a look at your career site, or in the case of most staffing and recruiting firms, your career site and your company website are one and the same. We are going to look at mobile outreach, ways that you can be proactively using mobile devices to attract more people to your job openings. We're going to look at the whole area of mobile attraction, which are ways to proactively bring people to your website. Outreach and attraction sort of go hand in hand. Outreach is going after the people with whom you already have a relationship, mostly your current and former candidates. And attraction is bringing more people to you, people you probably don't know, and leveraging mobile technology and social media and all kinds of things online to get more people to your jobs. And finally, we're going to wrap things up by talking a little bit about overall employment branding, some of the challenges the staffing industry faces as a whole, and some of the things that you specifically can do to brand your company as a place for excellent job opportunities in your industry and/or local job market. Now, along the way, guys, if there are questions, use the question dialog box. I will do my best to try to incorporate your questions throughout the presentation. And if something comes up after the presentation, my contact info will be at the end. So please don't be shy. Reach out to me and I'll be more than happy to help answer your questions about mobile recruiting. So let's kick things off. Mobile recruiting, the what and the why. So let's just talk about, just what is mobile recruiting? Well, according to the website HR Zone, mobile recruitment is a method of connecting jobs and candidates via handheld devices, typically smartphones. So there's no real rocket science here. This isn't some thing that you have to be an advanced IT guru in order to think about how to use mobile in your recruiting process. You have to think about, how do I use mobile, which is really nothing more than a new, different way of communicating with job seekers. How do I use mobile as a medium to facilitate or enhance our company's recruiting process? And the first take home that I give to you from today's webinar is sit down with your recruiters and document every single thing you do in recruiting candidates, from the time you get a job order, how you take that job order, how you document it, how you put it into your ATS, how you add it to your website or you promote it in various job boards and social media today, how you communicate with the candidate from beginning and first contact until placement. Look at all of the steps that you have, and with your recruiters say, okay, let's assume that the majority of our candidates are living on a mobile device. How do we leverage that device in our recruiting process? How do we make a better experience for our candidates using smartphones as their primary or initial source of interaction with our firm. And that's really what we're going to talk about today, is how to do a lot of these things. What are some of the key elements you need? But if you do nothing else after today's webinar, sit down with your team and just do that brainstorming. As you come up with ideas, you can start to gradually implement enhancements to your recruiting process to better leverage mobile. Now, why does it matter? Why did I say 2015 is probably really the year where mobile recruiting hits the mainstream? Well, check out this first statistic. There are approximately 7 billion people on our planet, and of them, 4.2 billion own a toothbrush, and 5.1 billion own a smartphone. Kind of a disgusting statistic, but pretty fascinating in that there are more smartphones than toothbrushes. 86% of active candidates use their smartphone to begin a job search. Think about that. Almost 9 out of 10 of the people who are looking for work, their first method of searching is on a smartphone. 70% of active candidates want to apply with you via mobile. If you don't offer a mobile optimized application process, you're not appealing to almost 3 out of 4 job seekers. And 55% of job seekers want to be able to upload a resume to your career site. Now, that's fairly easy if they're on a desktop, but uploading a resume on a mobile device is a whole different ballgame, and we have to think about how to enable people to effectively apply via mobile, and we're going to get into that later. And if I haven't convinced you yet that mobile is important, I want you to just think about your own experience. When was the last time you were out in public and you saw a teenager that was not connected to a smartphone? When was the last time you saw a millennial who was not connected to a smartphone? In fact, I saw a story on one of the news shows this past weekend where they were talking about the new smartphone etiquette and how it's really just okay to have it on the table the entire time you're having a conversation with people. And for that matter, let's not just throw the younger generations under the bus here. How many baby boomers aren't checking Facebook and their email at least 72 times a day? The sort of practical reality for most of North America and most of the world is smartphone has become our legal crack cocaine. We're completely addicted to it. We're on it all day long. It's going to be our first point of contact with just about everybody in the outside world. And particularly if I'm actively employed and I'm thinking about a new job, or I'm even passively doing it, I'm not going to do it on my computer at work. I'm going to do it on my phone. So are you ready for these people? Now, LinkedIn did an interesting study about people who are using mobile devices, and this table you see in front of you refers to people who are using either a smartphone or a tablet as part of their job search. And they looked at active and passive job seekers. What I found interesting was the passive column here. 60% have viewed career opportunities sent to their inbox. So if you're sharing hot jobs with passive job seekers, you're going to get people looking at your jobs. The next one, 72% versus 62% have visited a company's website to learn about careers on a mobile device. So think about that. 3 out of 4 active job seekers and 3 out of 5 job seekers that are passive seekers are going to your website on a mobile device. If your website is not optimized for mobile, those people are not going to seriously consider your company. The next interesting stat to me here was the people who have browsed career opportunities on social and professional networks. Social media is one of the biggest uses of a cell phone, probably second after email and way before actually using it as a phone. So if your jobs are not on social sites, potential candidates are not able to find those jobs and come back and apply for a job with you. And then the last statistic I want to highlight here is the 45%, nearly half of active job seekers have attempted to apply for a job on a mobile device. Yet the vast majority of career portals, of ATSs offering online apply, do not offer a mobile optimized application process. So whether you're trying to appeal to active job seekers because you've got a temporary assignment to fill tomorrow, or passive job seekers because you're trying to find an absolute A-level candidate for a search assignment, you need to think about engaging these people on mobile. And then that same LinkedIn study had some great quotes from mobile job seekers, and I'll just read these out loud. I've stopped applying if their mobile technology isn't up to par. That alone tells you something about the company's priorities and whether they are savvy. So I doubt there's anybody on today's call that does not want to be seen as a savvy staffing company. But if you're not optimized for the mobile job seeker, guess what? You're going to be abandoned by anyone probably under age 50 that values companies that invest in technology, that values companies that are up to date in how they interact with their candidates. If you're not mobile optimized, you're not one of those companies. Next quote, some company websites are impossible to use from an iPad device anytime their career site section is in Flash. Arr. Yep, there's a lot that are Flash or iframes or other technologies that just don't play nicely on mobile devices. And usually iPads work better than phones. But we're going to take a look at how to apply on a mobile device and hopefully encourage you to go test your own application process on your website. And if nothing else, contact your ATS provider if you don't like what you see, or contact us and let us help provide a solution. And lastly, the mobile apply was all easy except uploading my resume. I had to hand deliver one to the business. Now, how many candidates are going to hand deliver a resume to you? But the vast majority of online applications have a button that says click to upload your resume. That button does not work on a smartphone. When you click that button on a smartphone, it can only attach a picture. So unless your resume is saved as a picture, that doesn't work. So you need alternative ways for people to get you their resumes. Now, somebody just asked a question related to this I'll address right away. Our company is currently looking into creating an app. Whether you're using an Apple product, iPhone, iPad, it will not let you select files from your computer. When asked to upload files, it gives you only two options: take a photo or use a photo from your library. How can companies overcome this? Well, this is what I was just talking about. You can't attach a resume file on an Apple device to an application form. So first thing, you mentioned your company's looking at creating an app. By and large, there's no need, no reason to invest in native app development for an online application. You can create a web-enabled web page, or excuse me, a mobile optimized web page or a web application that takes full advantage of mobile technologies without the expense of developing an app. The ways around that, I'm just going to say that I will show you the answers. There are a number of different ways to get that information because on the Apple device, you can't click the button to attach your resume. You can use third-party sites like Dropbox, you can use one-click applies, and I'll show you those options in just a few minutes. So what about your site? Are you mobile ready? And again, it's more than more than just having a responsive website. You're going to have a mobile toolbox, and the things to think about for your website, for your mobile toolbox, are number one, mobile search. We're going to get into that in more detail. Number two, mobile apply. How do we get that information from the candidates to know whether we want to bring them in for an interview? Then we're going to talk about mobile outreach. How do we push information to people we know to bring them back to our jobs to get them to apply? Then we're going to talk about mobile attraction. What can we do outside of the relationships we already have to build new relationships, bring more people to our jobs? And we'll wrap things up with employment branding. So let's start with your career site and the tools and considerations for your career site. I've been talking about responsive design. So for those of you who may not be familiar with the term responsive, essentially in very simple language, it means your website will respond or adjust its appearance to the device on which the website displays. So it's going to look one way on a desktop, it's going to shrink down usually on an iPad, and it may have a completely different look and feel on a mobile device. Now there is an alternative to responsive design, or an enhancement to it that we use with all of our websites, which is a mobile plugin. A mobile plugin is a way to add mobile functionality to your website to create a different mobile experience than you just get from the responsive site. Now, for any of the people who may be web developers on today's call, you know that pretty much anything you could do with a plugin, you could also program to do with a responsive design. We like the plugins because it separates the mobile content from the desktop content, and from a content management perspective, it just makes it easier to manage. So you may want to have different navigation on your mobile site. Maybe it's simpler, you don't have as many pages. You may want to cut down the copy on the mobile version because people aren't going to read as much on a smartphone. So we find that the mobile plugins just make that easier for a non-technical end user to manage, even though every web developer can say, yeah, I could do that by making the site completely adjust with a responsive design. Now, when it comes to Google and being found on search engines, responsive or a mobile plugin are essential. If you want to attract mobile candidates, you need to be found on searches. And as of this past April 21st, Google changed the rules and said, if your website is not optimized for mobile, we're going to degrade your search results. Basically meaning you're not going to show up in a search unless you're optimized for mobile. So what you need to do is either have a responsive site and/or be using a mobile plugin so that your site will show up in search results. In terms of searching, we're going to talk now about how do we get a candidate on a phone to realistically be able to search for your job openings. The key elements of a mobile search are it's got to be really quick. I need to know what to do in just a couple of clicks and be able to start looking at jobs. It's got to be intuitive. I don't have a lot of room to provide text around the job search process, so if people can't figure it out from what's written on the screen and simple prompts, it's not going to work. It's got to have big buttons. I'm using this on a phone. If you've got a tiny little button to push, my fat finger is not going to be able to hit that button accurately. So you see an example on the screen here. The left side shows one of our clients, Megaforce, in their job board. So the search is very simple. I can search by keyword or location, just like every candidate is used to searching on Monster, or Career Builder, Indeed, Simply Hired, pretty much every site. We have advanced search features that can be opened up. The plus symbol is sort of universal for something that's going to open. Just click on the advanced search and you'll see more ways to search at a deeper level, or that big blue bar that just says begin searching. When the search results appear, the key to a mobile search interface is that it's got to be readable. And readable means the print has to be big enough so on your phone it's easy to see. It has to be well organized so I can skim through the results. It's got to use the screen real estate very intelligently so that I can do things like drill down or filter my results. And on the right side you see there's filter options right at the top, but by default those are closed up. So if I want to filter or refine my search results, I could open them and choose other criteria. Each job has its own headline that's in a different color than the copy about that job, so I can just read the headlines. And then we convey some key information. Geographic location. In this particular case, the client wants to show the pay rate for the job because jobs with pay rates get more response. And the date the job was posted because candidates like to see jobs that are new. The arrow tells the candidate, if I push that, there's going to be more information about the job. But the other key aspect to your mobile job search interface is the candidate's not using a mouse, they're using their finger. So it's got to be very easy to scroll up and down, and this is laid out so with a finger I can just vertically scroll through any of the jobs, push those buttons with a click, and get the job details. When you go into a job, now we're thinking about how do we make it really easy to provide all the information the candidate needs. So we're going to repeat the job title so they know they're in the right place. We may have some fielded data like location, the date posted, a job ID that maps to a job in your ATS, an industry or job category you're assigning it to, pay rates, and then you'll notice we've got a call to action right away. If this job looks interesting to you, apply. Why do we include the apply above the above the job details? Because we want the candidate to take an action. So if they already know this job looks interesting, why make them read the whole job description and scroll down the page to apply? We've got the button right there. That is followed by more details about the job description, and what you see in the right box is the bottom half of the job listing. That initial job description is followed by 3 additional boxes where there's more information, but that information is presented in a way that there's not a lot of scrolling unless the job seeker is interested in reading about the job. So if I want to know the detailed job requirements, I click on it. It opens up and tells me all the requirements for the job. If I want to know additional information about the employer, I click on it, I get that information. If I want to meet the recruiter that I'm going to be dealing with, maybe I want to connect with that person on LinkedIn, I can open up the Meet the Recruiter, learn more about that individual, and start to build a relationship. And again, we repeat the Apply Online button so we can encourage the candidate to apply. But a lot of candidates may be skimming jobs on their phones and they're not ready to apply right now, and that's why you see Apply Later. So they can just click that button and email themselves a reminder about this job they're interested in, and then apply to this job when they have more time, either from their phone or from their desktop computer. Now there's some implications to the way jobs appear on mobile devices, and you have to think about the way people use smartphones. We read differently on a phone than we do on a desktop because it's a smaller screen. We're less patient when we're using a mobile device. So we have to think about designing our job content for that less patient user on a little screen and the person who's going to be scrolling with their finger. You have to think about, how do I write great job titles that make each job sound interesting but not make them so long that they're going to wrap and be hard to read? How do I use headlines and subheadlines so as someone's using their finger to scroll, they get the main gist of each section without having to read every word? How do I use bulleted lists and very short paragraphs so it's simple to read? Even if I'm riding home on the bus and being jostled around by the bus driver, I can read your job opening and get it. And how can I include multiple calls to action to encourage that person to take action and respond to our job? The job post on your desktop might be written in more long form paragraphs. The job that you send to Monster or Career Builder might be longer form paragraphs. But you really have to start thinking about writing your posts so they look great for a mobile viewer. Because if 86% of your candidates see the job first on mobile, then you should be writing the content for a mobile first audience. And now I'm going to answer the question that was asked earlier. How do we create a mobile apply? The keys to mobile apply is the less clicks, the better. The less data the candidate has to provide, the better. We have to think about non-resume based apply options. And we may want to provide the candidate the ability to simply just tag the jobs they're interested in, save them for later so that I can email them to myself, flag them so I can come back and fill them out on a desktop because that might be where my resume is. So what are some of the things that we're going to offer? Well, you see a couple on screen right now. You see an Apply Online button that allows somebody to fill out an online form, and you see a couple of one-click apply options. Apply now via Indeed. So if the candidate has all of their resume information in Indeed, they can use that button, and it will go grab all of their information from Indeed, use Indeed's online form to send the information in about that job, or if the job board that you have is integrated with LinkedIn, we can also take advantage of LinkedIn's one-click apply, go through their APIs, gather the data. I will say that LinkedIn is making it harder for staffing companies to do that. We've run into some issues with them rejecting some of the integrations because they want you to buy stuff rather than get their stuff for free. But we're trying to work with LinkedIn to find some resolutions because at least there's a lot of very good people at LinkedIn who think the staffing industry should be encouraging the use of Apply with LinkedIn. And this sort of goes without saying, this isn't just mobile. This is any online application. Get rid of the long forms. And yes, the one you see on the screen is a real job application. And yes, it's pretty sad. We had a client recently do an experiment, and they were using a long form, not this one, but a long form similar to this. And they were doing it because they needed all of that data to accurately categorize the candidates so that they could send them to the right assignments. It makes sense. But then we looked at the abandonment rate on that long application form, and 85% of the candidates were not applying. They were leaving before they filled out the form. So 15% they got great data, but they were losing 85% of the job seekers. Any online form has to be easy to complete, and on mobile it has to be even easier. Very short fields. If you've got drop downs, you know how on a mobile device it's not a drop down like it is on a desktop where you move down, scroll, and click on the option. It brings up that the little sort of almost wheel-like interface where you use your finger to scroll through it, and if there's a long list of options, that's overwhelming. Your drop downs need to be relatively short, and if you're currently asking people to fill out 500 skill codes, yes, a lot of companies do that, just forget about it, the online application. Do that in phase 2. Do that after you've already determined it's a candidate you want to see, and then either send them a link to go back and fill out skill codes on a desktop, or tell them if they only have mobile access, come to the office and they can do it on a PC in your offices. When it comes to the mobile application, you want to ask for the bare minimum information you need to qualify the candidate. At first, you want to get their name and their contact information. So even if they fill out nothing else, you could follow up with them and say, hey, you didn't complete your application. We'd love to see your resume. Could you send it to us? And then you want to get some qualification data. Ideally, you want a resume. But maybe if you can't get a resume, or maybe you're dealing with light industrial people who may not have a resume, then a very simple Q&A about basic skills. You see on screen now there's an orange arrow highlighting one of the ways people can apply when you can't click attach a resume. You can choose to upload from a source like Dropbox. And to our earlier question, this is one of the ways. You can use Dropbox, Google Drive. There are other places you can integrate your job application with where a candidate might have their resume and be able to attach it with one click by going to the third-party cloud-based storage where their resume exists. So our job board is integrated with Dropbox. We're looking at further increasing those options as well. Again, it's a very short form, only asking for what you need. Another option is to think about creating a pre-qualification form with a short list of essential questions that help you determine, is this someone from whom I'd like a resume? Make them answer the list of questions. Anybody who passes, you send them a response email saying, thank you so much, that looked great, can you please directly email your resume to us at? Now, I don't like breaking it into 2 steps, but if you have no other option, that pre-qualification form is easy to fill out online because you can just make it yes/no questions, and it's very easy for the candidate to express their interest. If you ask the right questions, you can effectively screen out people who are not qualified, or at least get enough information to then see would they be qualified for other jobs that you have. And I had a very specific question. Does the job board you're looking at integrate with Bond Staff Suite software? We do integrate with Bond Adapt, Bond eMTAC. The VCG product tools use an online application called WorldLink, and that unfortunately is not mobile optimized, nor can it directly integrate with another third party. All right, so we've talked about a bunch of options for applying, but I want to revisit the issue of what do you do when someone can't give you the resume. So I showed you one example, save the job for later. I can flag it, I can come back at a later date on a non-mobile device and apply. I can email the job. Every job should have the ability to email it to myself or even email it to a friend. And you see at the bottom of the example here, there's a bunch of social media icons, and the one next to the Google Plus, it's a little harder to see, but it's an envelope, and that's so you can email a direct link to that job to anybody you want. Another option could be to provide a phone number that somebody can call and say, if you're interested, click here to call us, which is easy to set up from a mobile device, and it goes to a voicemail box, and you just say, please leave the job ID you're seeing on the screen and a little bit of information to answer the following questions about yourself, and we'll get back in touch with you. Now, I've not seen anybody doing an apply that way, but it seems to me a very viable way to capture candidate information, particularly from light industrial candidates. And another possibility might be if you're using a video interviewing service, you would go directly from your job application to the video interview, because somebody could do that video interview right there on their phone and answer the questions you're going to have in your video interview so that you can use that as your screening device. All right, so we've covered mobile search, we've covered mobile apply, but as I said in the beginning, mobile recruiting is about a lot more than just search and apply. So now we're going to start to transition talking about getting people to your jobs, creating engagement. The apply is the last mile of the recruiting process. Let's talk about the first mile, getting candidates to your jobs. So first and foremost, the easiest thing is to make job alerts a habit. You may have seen it on the screen as we were going by earlier, but I'll show it to you again now. Every time you display a job, every time you display a job search, every time somebody can apply online, you should be encouraging them to opt in for job updates, ideally automated job updates, so that they get email alerts anytime you post jobs that match the criteria they're interested in. And in the bottom right here, you see a sample of an email that was from Massiello Employment Services that we set up as a sample here that shows what a job alert email might look like. So the candidate is getting a list of jobs that match their saved search results, and then with one click they can go back and apply to any job they're interested in. When pushing out hot job emails or job alerts, you also want to be asking for referrals, because you may be sending it to a candidate who's not interested, but they could refer it to a friend. So if you've got a referral bonus program in those emails, highlight that program, remind people what you will do for them if they refer the qualified candidate to your job. If your staffing software allows, you can also use SMS or text messaging for your job alerts. Now that's as long as you have permission to text, and you do have to get permission. Pushing out job openings via text will probably get you the absolute fastest response to your job openings. Now, one important caveat about job alerts, too many companies make all of their candidate communication about job alerts, and if you want to annoy your candidates, don't do anything other than send them job alerts, because when you just send job alert after job alert with no other communication, that's not seen as value-added service to the candidate. They get annoyed. You have to think about other ways to engage the candidate so that they want to have an ongoing relationship with your firm. And one of the easiest way to do that is with an email newsletter. So you're looking on screen now at kind of a funny picture, and the reason it's a funny picture is this is an email newsletter designed for mobile, designed in sections that can be scrolled, whereas each section is about one screen of the phone. So if you put these 4 panels together vertically, you can envision what the entire email newsletter looks like. The top, there's a masthead, a section called Get Hired with information to help the job seeker get the employment they're looking for. But you're going to be communicating with candidates who may be happy with the job they have. Maybe they're a temp that's on assignment. So the next section is called Get Ahead, which is ideas on how to increase your pay and get a promotion and be more successful in your job. It's teaching candidates to do all the things on the job you want them to do. Next section is Live Better. Candidates are human beings, and they don't want the communication you have with them to only be about jobs. So share work-life balance kind of content, information that candidates will find relevant and interesting. It could be human interest stories, motivational quotes, just feel-good stories that make people feel better about working with and having a relationship with your firm. And the last section here is an interview tip of the month, very practical advice. People in email newsletters like tactical tips. They'll save tactical tips for future reference, so include them in your email newsletters. Then you'll see a little section that says Candidate Resource Center. This company has an entire library of online content available to the candidate, and they're using their newsletters to engage the candidates, to drive them back to their website, to supplement the job-oriented marketing that they're doing to the candidates. And again, the newsletter itself, the emails have to be optimized for mobile, because if you're going to engage the job seeker, most of their interaction with you, most of their email reading is going to be done on a mobile device. Don't forget about referral programs. Every staffing and recruiting firm has a referral program, and generally they don't work very well. So what are the keys to an effective referral program? Now, number one, if you've not watched our webinar on surviving the boom, it's in our webinars on demand in the lunchwithhaley.com website. You can go back and rewatch that, because we went into referral programs in great detail, but I'll just give you a couple of highlights of how to create a more effective referral program. The first thing is to make sure you're asking for referrals as often as you can throughout your candidate communications. At every touch point, look at the opportunities to leverage that to get more referrals. Second thing is to think about the rewards you're offering. Are they meaningful? If they're cash rewards, are they big enough to provide a meaningful incentive? But you may find non-cash rewards have more value than cash rewards, or a chance, an opportunity to get a bigger prize is more meaningful than a very small cash payment that's guaranteed. So make your rewards meaningful, and then make it really easy to share the referrals by making it easier to share your jobs. On mobile, you're going to think about emailing the jobs for people, allowing the recipients to socially share the jobs so they can refer people, promoting your referral incentives in your mobile job template, and simply asking people in your newsletter and in your hot job alerts to please share referrals. All right, so the engagement, again, was people who are already in your ATS. They're candidates you had a relationship with. So what you're trying to do is find reasons to go back to them over and over and over again, nurture relationships, share jobs, get referrals, get candidates to reactivate themselves. However, for I'm sure everyone on today's call, what you really want is to get more candidates in the door, and the vast majority of candidates are people with whom you don't yet have a relationship. So how do we attract people to your jobs? Well, the first thing is search engine optimization. And I'm sure if any of you have been on lunch with Haley's before, you have seen us talk about the importance of search engine optimization and optimizing jobs by getting the jobs really on your website. Now, what does that mean, really on your website? It means they're not sitting on some other domain that's not your company's domain. So this website you're looking at on screen is a company called Berks and Beyond. Their website domain is berksandbeyond.com, and their jobs are all located at jobs.berksandbeyond.com. Why is that important? Because they have hundreds of job openings, and when those jobs go on their website, every job is on there as a different, unique page of content. The search engine sees all of those pages of content as being part of that domain, Berks and Beyond, which makes that domain more relevant to the searches candidates are doing. So we want to make sure the jobs are on your site, because if they're not on your site, all that great job content is helping optimize a different domain that's not yours. It's helping drive more people, maybe to your jobs, but really more people to another website. You want to optimize the individual job posts. And the individual job posts are optimized in several ways. For search engines, you want to optimize them based on the job title, the location, and you want to optimize in the URL of the job, the page title of the job, the headlines used in the job, and the description that displays in Google search results. You want to optimize in all those different areas. And again, we've covered this. We have another webinar on demand on recruiting optimization where we spend about 15 minutes on this topic. So somebody just asked, where can I find the other webinars? If you go to lunchwithhaley.com and then you click on webinars on demand, you'll find the one on recruiting optimization. You'll also find the one called surviving the boom. But when we're optimizing posts, it's not just for search engines. You also have to think about optimizing your post for job aggregators, Indeed, Simply Hired, ZipRecruiter, places that are grabbing your jobs, putting them into a database where the candidate is going to do a search. When the candidate does a search on those sites, they're going to see dozens or even hundreds of jobs that match their search criteria. One of your challenges is to make your job stand out from everybody else's jobs. You do that with the titles you use for the jobs. You want something that's a title that logically makes sense to the candidate, but is enhanced in such a way that it differentiates your job from everybody else. So if I'm hiring for a legal secretary, I don't want the job title to be just legal secretary. I may want to say legal secretary, top employer in Rochester, New York, or legal secretary, local best place to work, or legal secretary, $25 per hour. I don't know what the current good pay rate is for a legal secretary, so I just threw that out. But the idea is you're using a value, benefit, or additional detail along with your job description so that when someone's skimming through a job aggregator, they see your jobs and they look different than everybody else that just used the same Me Too functional job description. You also want to maximize the distribution of your jobs. Get them out to the aggregators, which there are lots of ways to do that. Our job board software is one of them, but there are many tools that can distribute jobs for you. A lot of these aggregators will take jobs for free. Some you have to do pay-per-click advertising. We have a lot of clients that get great results from Indeed and use their PPC. We have other clients that have been very happy with doing pay-per-click and other distribution models with ZipRecruiter, but we also find that it's not universal. A company may find Indeed works really well for them and ZipRecruiter doesn't, and the next company may find exactly the opposite. You're going to find it varies in your local market. You want to set up tests of these different sites, work with the salespeople in these organizations to run a test and see where spending money on recruiting works best for the kinds of people you place in your local market. And don't forget looking for free sites that'll take your jobs. In many markets, you're probably using Craigslist because it's free. There are also local job boards that may be able to scrape your jobs or take a feed of all of your job data and feed them into their site. And in terms of distribution, it's not just the job aggregators. You can also distribute to social media. Now, in terms of social media, what we're trying to do is maximize the social reach of your jobs because there are millions of people on social media you don't know. And we want to find the most effective way to put those jobs in front of the relevant people on social media. So there are multiple ways to do that. You want to automate sharing where you can so that every single job you have goes to Twitter. You may want to take all the jobs and automate sending them to LinkedIn as status updates for a specific recruiter. Now, if you have a large number of jobs, I wouldn't do that. But if you have a relatively small number of jobs, if you're a recruiting firm, I may want my jobs automatically feeding to my LinkedIn status updates, so I'm promoting the jobs to my candidate network without doing anything. You want to do manual sharing of the jobs where appropriate. I want to share them to my company page on LinkedIn because that can't be automated. I want to share them in LinkedIn groups because that can't be automated. I want to share them on Facebook, which can be automated, but when you overdo Facebook with job posts, it does not get a good response. So you want to be more strategic in how you share on Facebook by doing limited shares of your best jobs and jobs that you can add graphics to and jobs you might even want to maybe even want to pay to do a sponsored post so that more people will see your job. And just like you can test pay-per-click advertising on Indeed and Simply Hired and ZipRecruiter, you can test the pay-per-click models on Facebook and LinkedIn to put your jobs in front of people who match specific demographic profiles, thereby introducing your firm and the jobs you have to an audience that you don't know at all, that isn't following you on the social channels, and bring them back to the jobs on your job board. If you're a recruiter working for a staffing or recruiting firm, you should be using these social sharing tools to personally share your jobs so that you're putting them in front of the networks that you're connected to. So the automated sharing your companies is doing may not share with your personal LinkedIn network and your personal Facebook network or Twitter network or Google+. So you want to use the social sharing tools, assuming your job board has them, that enable you to, with a click of a button, take the jobs that you are the recruiter for and share them with your social network to drive more response. And if your job board has these buttons, it's just one click on each social network to share the jobs. It couldn't be easier. And speaking of the social media, you want to think about building your own talent communities. So connecting with people on Facebook and LinkedIn. Building your own private network of people you're connected to, and the goal of the network is not just to get people to apply to jobs. It's to facilitate idea sharing. You want to be a conduit for some of the best ideas for your talent community. Now, the talent community could be organized around a geography, best jobs in Rochester, New York. It could be organized around a job discipline, IT jobs in a specific geographic area or IT jobs in a very specific niche discipline. And the idea is you're building a talent community around a group of people who would find benefit in engaging with one another. Now, if your talent community is nothing other than a thinly veiled way to recruit, people won't join it. It will tell others that it's a lousy place to be. But if you are truly creating a place for people to share ideas and information, it can be very powerful. I talked to an organization this week that works in accounting and financial staffing, and they have a great community of CFOs in the geographic markets that they service. They use this community to keep themselves in touch with the latest issues and trends going on in the world of CFOs, but also as a benefit to the CFOs to share information with one another in a format that the CFOs wouldn't have organized on their own. And that's what you want to be doing, is thinking about how can I use LinkedIn groups or Facebook to create a community where my candidates can interact with one another and I can keep other recruiters out. And lastly, we're going to wrap things up today with a discussion on employment branding. And employment branding is about more than mobile. It's about having a great brand for your company. Unfortunately, for staffing and recruiting firms, we as a whole, as an industry, do not have a great employment brand. There's a misperception that we represent lots of lower quality, lower paying jobs, that we are organizations that only care about our fees and we don't put people first. Well, we can't change the world's perception about the staffing industry, but you can change the perception about your organization. You need to get people in your community, in the talent community you serve, to see your organization as the best place to work, to see as a leader in sharing ideas, as a trusted partner for anybody's job search. So how do we do that? Well, it starts with the job post you're writing. Branding is about creating perceptions. It's about communication. And so when you write a job post, don't write a job post like everybody else does. Paint pictures with your words. Get the candidates to envision how wonderful this job is and to see themselves as the answer to your dreams, or more importantly, the job as the answer to their dreams. You want to show off the job, the client's culture, and why your firm is such a great place to work. To a new candidate, that job post they're reading is probably their first introduction to your firm and to your client. So you want to set the right tone and make a great first impression with the job post. It's the first element of your brand to most people. You also want to set very clear expectations for people. Most of the people you're placing are not looking for jobs every day, and you probably don't want to be placing the ones who are. You need to help candidates to understand things like, how does the hiring process work with your company? How do I apply? What do I expect after I apply? What's going to happen? Are you going to get back to me, or is it going to be a black hole? Should I call you? Should I call you every day? You need to train them how and when to best communicate with you. It's about managing expectations, and when you're proactive about it, it makes your job easier as a recruiter. It also creates a better experience for the candidate. Too often we assume that candidates know how to interact with our jobs and our website and our mobile application. Well, don't make that assumption. Make sure you're setting clear expectations in the ways you're communicating, in the prompts that you provide, in the way you design your website so that it's super easy, super intuitive to use. One of the great things that you can do in your communication is to share insights about your clients. You have access to information about the jobs you represent that nobody else has, that even the clients directly may not want to share. That's an asset you have that will attract people to your jobs. You can give them more in-depth information. It's a benefit to your clients too, because you're going to only refer them candidates who are the best possible fit. But the more you can be seen as an organization that has information that others don't, the more candidates you're going to attract. A company we're working with in Southern California does a wonderful job of this. They work in the accounting and financial world, and they are the top experts at the local talent community. They know more about the people, the players, the ins and outs of what's happening in that community than anybody else, and they leverage that knowledge in their blog, in the offers they make on their website, in all of the content that they provide to share insights, not just about their clients, but about the accounting and financial career community in Southern California. They do a phenomenal job. So when you're offering job seekers information about clients, think about what you can tell them about a company's culture, the advancement and training opportunities, how to succeed in the interview process, and direct feedback from other people who worked for this employer so they know how to figure out, is this really the right job for me? Think about making yourself a best place to work. How do you get seen as being a top local employer? Best of staffing. If you're not already participating in an Innovero Best of Staffing, you may want to look at it, because if you can be a Best of Staffing talent, that little badge tells the world that I'm one of the top 2% of staffing firms in the United States. You should want to work for us. But you can also be a best place to work in your local community or in the industry you serve. The idea is having that badge that shows you as a best place to work says a lot about you as an employer. And if I'm a job seeker and I can choose from any one of a dozen or 100 staffing companies, I'm going to pick the ones that are the best places to work over the ones that have no positive reputation. And speaking of reputation, I don't have a slide on this here, but part of that is also thinking about proactively managing your online reputation, your reviews. If you're not proactively managing Yelp, Google reviews, and Glassdoor, then you're giving the control of your employment brand solely to your candidates. Now, you can't wrestle that control away from them. They always get control. But you can help steer the conversation by proactively using a reputation management service. Quick sales pitch, yes, that's something we do. But what we do is we want to go after the candidates right after a service experience, find out if they're happy or not. If they're really happy, get them to leave you a review. If they're unhappy, get them to give you feedback before they go online and leave a negative review on Yelp or Glassdoor or Google reviews. The next thing you can do is try to become a thought leader. Create and share great content that positions you as an expert for the kinds of candidates you want to place. Now, in terms of being a thought leader, you can brainstorm with your team. What topic should we be known as being the top expert on in our community or our industry or for our talent communities? And then how do we share that information via social media, email marketing, webinars like this, web content on our website, YouTube through video content, and even in person at job fairs or Chamber of Commerce meetings. Being a thought leader is not just online, it's sort of a culture you live in, the ways you interact with your clients and your candidates, and about educating people at every step of your recruiting and sales process. You're always teaching people new things. That makes people want to work with you because they see you as an expert. That also makes them want to call you when they have a problem to solve, which leads to higher margin staffing services. It's just as important to be human. We think about mobile, it's an electronic device. We're dealing with people through electronic devices, but mobile is just a platform for bridging the recruiter and the candidate. So we have to make sure we're being human in our communications. Connect your recruiters to the job seeker, whether it's a profile as you see on screen here in the job post, whether it's through your email communications, whether it's through text messaging, or even the occasional calls to your candidates. You want to connect with people so that they want to have an ongoing relationship with you even when they're not looking for work. You want to encourage people to connect with you on LinkedIn, connect with your recruiters on LinkedIn, connect via Facebook. So you're building a talent community that you can then use these social channels to nurture. And when you're connected to people and they like and share your content, they're helping you build your talent community. So now you're getting zero cost recruiting, which takes us to our next slide, building and nurturing a talent community. Beyond positioning yourself as the best place to work, beyond being a thought leader, it's focusing around these talent communities. As I mentioned, a community is a group of people who share common interests. For most staffing firms, you may have multiple communities based on the job disciplines you serve. It might just be in your local job market, but you want to create these communities and have a game plan for nurturing relationships. Those nurturing programs should be a mix, I'm going to repeat it here, should be a mix of content that is interesting, valuable, relevant, and timely to the job seeker. It's not just about jobs, and job posts, as well as information about referral programs. It is thinking about how do I be that conduit for great ideas and great information with the audience I want to reach. And lastly, think about creating an exceptional experience for the candidate. How can I make it easier, faster, more fun? You know, applying for a job is painful. And if you've ever looked at the application process that candidates have to go through, it's even worse with a lot of direct employers than it is with staffing companies. It's hard work. So how can we make it better? Another take home from today's webinar is go through your own hiring process as a candidate. Do it on your website. Do it as a walk-in. Do it on a mobile device and document everything you see. What are all the steps you make somebody go through as a candidate? What steps could you get rid of to make it easier? What's all the data the candidate has to supply? What data could you get rid of to make it easier? How could you improve communication throughout the process to provide faster feedback and even more honest feedback that lets people know exactly where they stand? How could you be more responsive to people? You can't place everybody and you can't follow up with everybody every day. So how can you set up systems using the phone and email and social media to better follow up more regularly, more thoroughly, and to create this great communication experience with the candidate? It's about reinventing the entire process, online, on mobile, and offline. It can be in your offices, your waiting area, your interview facilities. It can be how you enable people to do remote interviewing or video interviewing. Overall, what you're trying to do is think about the candidate's experience, the recruiting experience, and how do I make it something that's wow, something that people want to tell others about, want to do time and time again. It's never going to be easy, but it shouldn't feel like going to the dentist either. And we want to make it more fun, more enjoyable, faster, easier for our candidates. With that said, we have reached the end of our overview of mobile recruiting. If there are questions, there have been a couple of that have come in. I think I've addressed most of them. I've got one that I'll restate that's come in. Be happy to stay on the line. Also, take down my contact info. Give us a call if you got a question. Email me. Connect with me on Twitter or connect with Haley Marketing Group. We are more than happy to answer questions about mobile recruiting, optimizing your website, integrating our job board, reputation management, or anything else that you'd like to know about how to market your firm. And before I address the questions, one more thing I want to bring up is something that many of you may have seen, but not all of you have. About a month ago, we created a service. We are giving away free marketing. Yes, that's right. We're giving it away because we want to help every staffing firm, every recruiting firm promote the value of staffing services. That's good for you, and in the long term, that's good for us too. So if you have not yet been to check out Staffing Works, you'll see that every week we are adding new content, new social graphics that you can share on all the social channels that promote the value of staffing services. We're also creating articles that you can download, use as the basis for blog posts, add to your website. All free, all to use, and we welcome your input for ideas for future content as we create more information for Staffing Works throughout the year. So check out staffingworks.haleymarketing.com. Okay, and then now we have a couple of questions that have popped up. Another person who wanted to know where the webinars were for how to build a referral program. We had a webinar called Recruiting Optimization, and we had a webinar called Surviving the Boom, which was just about how to do well this year. They are both in our Lunch with Haley webinar archive. So you go to lunchwithhaley.com, and then you go to Webinars on Demand, and then you can search all of the past Lunch with Haley webinars. You can listen to them all there. There is, I don't know, 40 or 50 of them, I think now, hours and hours and hours of webinars that you can use as training for your staff, and this one will be added to that archive sometime next week. Another question popped up about how can we integrate with our ATS. The first thing is you can contact us outside this webinar about what ATS you're using. I'll be happy to talk to you about the various options, but with ATSs, there are usually 3 options. The ATS has its own job board and application process that you integrate with your website. You want to see what they offer. Is it mobile optimized? If it's not, we integrate with 23 different ATSs with our job board that is mobile optimized, and we have a mobile apply process, so we may be able to integrate. And many of them also have APIs that allow you to exchange data in and out of their system so that you can share information with your website and the ATS through their APIs, and you'd have to hire a web developer to build that interface, but that's a third way to do that. So for the person who asked that question, feel free to reach out to us and we'll get into specific about your ATS. And then a follow-up question, can we get the API for ATS? You'd have to talk to your staffing software provider about what they offer. All right. I want to thank everybody for spending an hour with me today on today's webinar. I hope you enjoyed it. Our next webinar coming up, and I apologize, the date has not yet been filled in, so check our Lunch with Haley website. But it is that social is the new cold call. It is coming up, I think, the 3rd week of September, but it wasn't filled in at the time we finished the slides. But we'll be doing one talking about using social media in the same ways that you typically pick up the phone to do cold calling. Great set of information coming up for salespeople and recruiters on how to leverage social media more effectively to get more appointments and make more placements. And from all of us at Haley Marketing Group, thank you, and we look forward to seeing you on a future Lunch with Haley webinar.